Welcome to the Hope for the Animals podcast, a project of compassionate living. I'm your host, Hope Bohannic, and today we're going to talk about communication, communicating our message of animal freedom, and particularly on social media. Our guest is Johnny Oberg. He is a social media powerhouse with an extensive following on multiple networks. And I want to talk just a bit about communication and narrative here for a moment before we get into our conversation with Johnny. So, we all want to be good communicators, right? Good storytellers, especially vegans, especially animal advocates that are telling stories, telling the stories of animals, both the heartbreaking and the heartwarming. And we also have to be journalists, storytellers, but telling the truth, the stories that are true, the truth that needs to be exposed and communicated in an interesting and accurate way. And the ways that we communicate have to evolve. Just like the digital leap to online outreach, we also have to evolve the narratives that we tell as our society changes, as our understanding of things change, as the animal agriculture industry changes. Journalists are regularly updating their AP style books, their guidebooks that talk about how they can clearly and understandably articulate things that are more socially sensitive or more just the way culture is moving. We as vegans don't have an AP style book. We kind of rely on each other to update our language. So, I have a few updates to our very common tropes and repeated language that I like to encourage. And the one that I'm going to talk about right now is not using the term factory farming. You may have heard me say this on a past podcast episode, but this one isn't talked about enough because it's kind of a new concept, so it bears repeating. So, this is part of the messaging of our Humane Hoax Project, which is another project through my nonprofit Compassionate Living. And some, when they first hear this suggestion of not to use this phrase factory farming, are kind of resistant. It has been such a powerful phrase, and I agree, it has. It's done its job. It equates the commodification and process and processing of animals, equates them to machines in a factory. So it has been very powerful. It's been a powerful tool. However, now with all the humane and sustainable labeling that's out there on animal products, people now believe that their alternative animal products are not factory farmed, right? People think, oh, but my meat isn't factory farmed. I get it at Whole Foods. Or my eggs aren't factory farmed. I buy them at the farmer's market. There's even animal product companies out there who say in their marketing on their websites that they don't support factory farming, so buy their pork or their eggs. Because the industry has shifted, so too our language needs to shift. And please understand that now, when we say stop factory farming, that's not necessarily a vegan message. It used to be. That was really the only option for consumers. But now there's cage free and free range and grass fed and all the labels and advertising and marketing that tell shoppers that their products are not factory farmed, that what they're buying is not from large scale evil animal ag, but the friendly, kind killing of animals. Hmm. Well, of course, we all know that that is not true. There is no humane way to commodify someone's body, to take away their agency, to kill them. So, this one I feel is really important. We need to stop saying factory farming. So, what do we say instead? We say all animal farming, all animal agriculture. All animal farming is cruel. End all animal agriculture. Even terms like animal agribusiness, which I used to use a lot too, it causes that separation of big and small in consumers' minds. And they think that there is some small scale way to commodify and kill animals that is humane. And as you may know, my listeners If you've been following this podcast and the work of my Humane Hoax Project will know, there is no humane way to commodify someone's body. Large scale animal ag uses these humane labels. Cage free operations have tens of thousands of chickens in their cruel facilities. And even if it is a small operation, there are still horrible abuses, the universal procedures and practices that are standard in any animal farming. There is no right way to do the wrong thing. So, this is a really tough one for us to change, this phrase factory farming. It's so ingrained in our lexicon as vegans. We say it repeatedly, we say it unconsciously, and we think that we're saying to end all animal suffering. But inadvertently, because of this shift in marketing, we're actually now possibly helping to market the animal industry's products, saying that other products like cage free and free range are okay to buy and consume because people don't see them as factory farmed. So we really need to be careful of this. And I feel we really need to retire the phrase factory farming and replace it with all animal farming. We have these things that we have said for decades that we really should rethink, update to better express our message of animal freedom. And maybe I don't have the best answers, but I think it's good to think about these things, right? And not be complacent in our language. And so let's talk more about communicating the message and specifically on social media with Johnny Oberg, our guest today. So, something that you don't know about this podcast is that I ask all my guests to adhere to language guidelines, and I provide them those guidelines before the interview. I ask them things that are kind of reminders, like not calling animals it and only calling animals he, she, or they, things like that. But I do ask that they not use the phrase factory farming. And I know that for some guests, this they haven't even thought about this, or this is the first time they've heard it. It is a new concept, so it can be tricky for them. And Johnny was kind enough to adhere to it mostly. I think he said it like once. But he did his best to accommodate me, and I really, really appreciate that. Okay, here we go. I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, today we are welcoming Johnny Oberg to the podcast. Johnny is an animal advocate dedicated to making the world a kinder place for animals by utilizing the power of social media. A vegan since 2009, he became an independent advocate in 2018, funded through individual donations, focusing on amplifying pro animal content in the digital space. Previously, he served as director of new media for the Humane League and also director of communications for Vegan Outreach. He has accumulated 300,000 followers. His posts have been viewed 500 million times, and he has heard from thousands of people who have been influenced by his work. Welcome to the podcast, Johnny.
Thank you so much, Hope. I really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Oh, I'm really excited to talk to you about such an important thing, social media, that I struggle with. And I can't wait to get your input and your advice. But I wanted to ask first, I know recently you changed your name to Johnny. You were John, you went by John for a lot, well, probably your whole life. And you changed your name to Johnny. So why the change? I'm curious.
Well, thanks for asking about this recent change in my life, Hope. The story is interesting in that I went by Johnny when I was a kid until around age 8 or so. And at that point, my mom asked me, "Do you want to go by John now?" And I really didn't necessarily want to, but I thought that she wanted me to because she asked me about it. And so I just said, sure. And for the next 30 years, I went by John. And I realized later that my mom didn't necessarily want me to start going by John. She just asked out of obligation. And so I said yes out of obligation.
Oh,
And truthfully, I never really felt like John. Like John really felt like me. And
mm,
I always loved it when people would call me Johnny on occasion. And I always felt like Johnny was a better reflection of who I am as an individual. It felt more fun and free and relaxed like I am. And I'd considered this change for years and years and years. And I just thought, oh, it'd be such a hassle to do it. In the last few years, I've been making a lot of what I like to think of as positive changes in my life. And one of the things that I had been considering was this name change. And so, starting around 3 years ago, I started looking at the goals that I actually had on a regular basis. And I would periodically check back on my goals and see where the progress is and how I can try to implement some of those goals. And one of those goals was to start going by Johnny. And I thought, I need to take this from just sitting on this list here to actually being something that I implement in my life. And so I said, you know what? I got to make a game plan here. So I kind of mapped it out and I was like, all right, in fall 2025, I'm going to actually do it. I thought about all the different ways in which this could be a problem. One problem is that I've spent over a decade building up a name and a brand on social media that is
Yeah.
just John Oberg.
Right.
So I've done what I can to mitigate the hassle there. But besides that, I have embraced my reclamation of the name Johnny, and I'm very happy about it. So thanks for asking me about it.
Yeah, nice, nice. Well, I very much encourage name changes. Many people don't know this about me, but Hope is actually my middle name. I went by my first name my whole childhood, and I changed my name to my middle name, Hope, when I was about 20, I think, 19 or 20. I just loved it and always resonated with it so much more. So, yeah, go with what you feel, go with what resonates. I love that. That's great.
I love that for you, Hope, and I think it's cool, and also so convenient that you chose so much younger than me.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
changing,
But
switching up at 38 is not ideal,
Yeah.
but hey, it is what it
Yeah,
is.
but better late than never. I'm glad you're doing it. And it's close enough that I think you can probably just keep the John Oberg, like at John Oberg or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And then when people are talking to you and you're, just when you're actually in conversation with, then you're Johnny. I think that would be fine. Is that what you're gonna do?
That is the goal. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah, good. Well, I think that's fine. I think that's awesome. All right, Johnny. Well, let's start with our first question. So, why and when did you go vegan?
So I went vegan in 2009. So that's currently about 16 years ago. And I went vegan because I learned how farm animals are being treated. And it was something that I didn't want to support anymore. So I had been an animal lover all my life, and then for some reason I saw this difference between my love for animals and then the animals I chose to eat. I unfortunately ate a lot of animals. I would regularly eat like massive amounts of meat in basically every meal. And
Hmm.
I had a conversation with someone in 2009 or in 2008, and they were basically like, if you love animals, you should probably stop eating them. And I had never once until that point really thought deeply about my love for animals and the foods I chose to eat. And it was at that point that was like the spark that finally led me to go vegetarian based on principle, basically on this principle that he had mentioned, where if I love animals, I shouldn't eat them. Then it was a number of months later, about 10 months later, where I felt like I might be ready to go vegan. And I was like, well, I should probably learn a little bit about animal agriculture and how animals are being treated, and why I should even be vegan. So I think I Googled, you know, vegan documentary, something like that, and I came across this film called Earthlings, which is a very, very powerful, striking documentary narrated by Joaquin Phoenix that talks about the different ways in which animals are exploited at the hands of humans. And there's a big emphasis on how farm animals are treated, and this is because farm animals comprise 99% of the animals that are killed every year. And I was really horrified on a few fronts. For one, I learned that it wasn't just, animals that are raised for meat. It was also animals raised for dairy and eggs that were also suffering, and that these animals weren't just living decent lives with one bad day when they were sent to slaughter. these animals were essentially suffering from the moment they came into existence until the moment they were slaughtered. And I knew that I could never pay someone else to do this ever again. And so I went vegan. And then I knew that being vegan was great, but it was just a drop in the bucket, and that it was really important to get other people involved and other people to change. And so at that point, I also got involved with animal rights advocacy.
Yeah, well, and so it was kind of online that drew you into to advocacy, other than that one person who said, and and it's so interesting, people are so afraid to say something, like they're like, oh, is someone going to judge me? Am I going to, I don't want to impose on people. But just that one line, hey, you should maybe consider not eating animals if you really love them. And that had such an impact on you. And so, even just this small moment, just saying one sentence, can have a huge, profound impact, because that person, has the downline impact of all that you've done and how many people that you've reached. So that's just wonderful. But I guess it was kind of online. You watched Earthlings online. So it kind of was online, social media that got you into it. Yeah, maybe a little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, in the last 16 years of doing vegan advocacy on a basically a full-time basis, I have met many, many vegans over my time and vegan activists, and so many of them were impacted by something they saw online,
Yeah.
very often social media.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
certainly is a very powerful tool.
Yeah, well, you are a social media pro. You're a social media powerhouse with over 300,000 followers, 7 different platforms. I remember when social media was just starting. I mean, I saw the whole trajectory. My, my activism back in the day, back in the 90s, were phone trees, where we would have to call each other. I mean, this is pre-email, right? So my activism goes way back. But so I saw this kind of in real time, this social media starting, and I remember there was a lot of people on the left, on the liberal side of things, that were very resistant to it, really kind of concerned about what it could bring. And of course, there's we could talk later about, there are certainly negatives, but I saw the potential. I could see that this could be really a great thing for animals, a fantastic way to spread the vegan message through social media. So, how did you evolve to making social media just your primary form of outreach?
Yeah, well, similar to you, going back to the streets, is that I got my start in activism on the streets. And in 2009, I joined every local vegan and animal rights group I could find. I was going to college in Arizona at the time, and I basically did everything I could see. I could do vegan food giveaways, I would do demonstrations, do protests, I would stand at street corners with holding video monitors showing videos of factory farms.
Yeah.
And something that I did that I really loved was leafletting. And that was basically finding a place with busy foot traffic, usually a public street or a college campus, and hand out leaflets. And in a few hours of doing this, I could reach hundreds or even thousands of people. And this sort of activism wasn't everybody's favorite form of activism. You have to deal with quite a bit of rejection and
Yeah, you kind of have to be really outgoing to be able to leaflet. Yeah.
yeah, well, actually, I would say that I'll push back on that a little bit in that it is really about just getting the leaflet into people's hands, not having conversations with
That's
people.
true. That's
Oh,
true. You're
okay. So
right.
I've
Yeah.
actually met some
Yeah.
really good, competent leafletters who are total introverts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really just like as long as you have this singular focus of getting as many leaflets out as possible, you can do it no matter where you fall on the spectrum of
Yeah,
introversion and
sure.
extroversion. And I really like doing this. And upon graduating college, I got a job with Vegan Outreach where they actually paid me to travel around North America handing out leaflets as my full-time job. And so I've actually visited the majority of US states and Canadian provinces doing this work. and I really loved it. Unfortunately, at the end of one of my tours, I was spending it in Michigan, where I'm originally from, and I was staying with my mom at the time, and she unfortunately, we found out she had stage 4 small cell lung cancer, and obviously, we were just distraught over this, and so I took a hiatus from my job to take care of her full time, and they gave her a really grim prognosis. They gave her like 6 to 9 months to live, but luckily she lived for 2.5 more years,
Hmm.
uh, which is great. And in that 2.5 years, I took care of her full time, and obviously couldn't travel doing leafletting work. And so the opportunity arose while I was taking care of her to take over the social media for vegan outreach. I realized like this is kind of a cool opportunity. I didn't know if I really had the bandwidth to do it, but I reluctantly agreed and started doing it. And I very quickly realized this is an incredible tool for animals and that I could reach more people in a single day of doing social media outreach than I might be able to do in an entire lifetime of handing out leaflets. And so at that point, I switched my focus from animal activism on the streets to animal activism in the digital space.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm sorry about your mom, and that was very wonderful of you to take the time to care for her at the end of her life. So now you are on 7 different platforms. You have such a wide reach going down your feed. I mean, I'm only on Facebook and Instagram, so I don't get to see all that you are on. But going down your feed for those 2 accounts, I see a good mix of like happy and sad, right? You've got videos with you at farmed animal sanctuaries and happy animals. There's commentary about their individuality and their intelligence. And you also have a lot of the reality videos of the fear and the pain and the sadness that animals endure in animal agriculture. So, what do you think is the best content to create, and maybe the best, mix of content? What would you advise to people to post?
So there's no simple answer to this question, Hope. The answer is essentially a combination of various things. So for one, it is about what kind of content resonates with you the most and what you find to be the most impactful content out there. For me, I do feel that hard-hitting content is likely the most effective form of content that we can be getting out there for people because, you and me and many, if not all of your listeners understand the cruelty that farm animals are facing behind the closed doors in animal agriculture. And for this reason, it might feel to us like we're just saying stuff that people already know, but the vast majority of people really don't have any clue about the suffering that is going on. And it is for that reason that it's really important for us to shine a light on that. Now, I think it's important to do so in a way that allows us to reach the mainstream and come across as being reasonable and rational and relatable. For that reason, I would highly recommend a blend of content. So, not just content from animal agriculture, but also content from animal sanctuaries, for example, where you get to show this other side of farm animals that people otherwise wouldn't be seeing. And it's for this reason that I post a blend of content. The content that I post that likely creates the biggest batch of pro animal people, whether that's going vegan or becoming an animal rights activist, is probably that content that is swinging open the doors of slaughterhouses and letting people see, wow, this is what's going on to the animals who I've been eating all my life.
Yeah, you said to keep the content reasonable, rational, and relatable. I like that. That's I think good advice, and I do like that mix of both the negative and the positive, but really showing what is the reality, what's going on. So using graphic imagery, and I think there's some controversy over whether to use graphic imagery. I've gotten pushback when I've put in just even sad images, not necessarily like graphically horrific, but just even just sad images I've had people saying, "Oh, I can't look," but these are already vegans that are saying that. I feel that if you've gone vegan and you've seen it all, you've done it all, you've watched Earthlings, you've seen it, then you don't have to expose yourself to it, over and over if that's traumatizing to you, right? If that is going to be too much. But there's so many people out there that haven't seen it. So scroll by quickly because please let us post these things so that others do see it. I think that it's so important. So, yeah, I mean, we do need to do it, but then not being gratuitous about it, not having it be every single post so that there is a good balance and that it doesn't get too overwhelming. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with you that, if you are already a vegan, you do not need to continually expose yourself to, this horrifying footage. And I know a lot of vegans who just follow every vegan page that they know because they feel obligated to, and it's obviously content that they agree with. But then, the result is that they're constantly seeing, being bombarded with like animal cruelty footage, and like just seeing that day after day is really takes a toll in so many different ways, and also can lead to burnout and just basically throwing up your hands and just giving up on all of it. So for that reason, I would definitely recommend not overly exposing yourself to this content if you already are vegan. But it is so incredibly important to get this content to be seen by other people. And it is important in some degree that vegans share this content. So for me, when I'm posting content, I'm thinking, all right, I want to appeal enough to vegans that they are willing to witness this content and share this content, but then also be appealing enough to meat eaters to not just shy away from it immediately. And for that reason, I'm not posting the worst of the worst content. One good aspect of how cruel and horrible animal agriculture is that we do not need to show the worst of the worst to still be able to make a compelling case
Right.
for why people should take this seriously and why people should go vegan. Yeah, I think about that all the time when I'm framing the content that I'm putting out there, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Even, I mean, what we're trying to do, right, is evoke emotion. And that I keep coming back to that when I'm thinking of how to present something or what to say, because the facts are important. Absolutely, we need to have, this many animals are suffering, and that, the facts are good to have, and some people have very rational minds, and they may really resonate with the facts and wanting to know. And but most people, I think, and we know this through social science, that most people make change because of emotion, because they are moved in some way, right? They're moved by emotion. And so that is kind of part of what we're doing, right? Is to provoke that emotion and having the sad images, the graphic images that can evoke these emotions that will move you in a direction of making change, whether it's sadness or anger or frustration or whatever it is. That's where you're going to have the motivation to make change.
Absolutely, Hope. And, like I said earlier, the problem is so bad that we don't need to exaggerate. We don't need to lie or mislead. We just need to give people really the crumbles of which people just don't know about what's going on behind the closed doors of these places. And we will absolutely get people to change. Lots of different animal advocates focus on different things. They'll talk about the health, they'll talk about the environmental impact and stuff, and obviously do what speaks to you the most. But for me, I find that speaking about the animals is the most effective way to make change because everybody loves animals. Almost nobody is indifferent to animal suffering, like 99% of people. And you can't get 99% of people to agree on anything. And
Yeah.
so the fact that we already have a society that cares about animals and doesn't want to see animals needlessly suffer, it makes our job quite a bit easier as animal advocates who want to use these platforms.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's true. We've already got that going for us that everyone cares about animals. They don't want to see them suffer, so we just have to tell them the truth about what's happening, and that there's a way for them to help and not be involved in that suffering. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So, okay, I have a couple things I want to ask. One is, how do you deal with like a troll. I sometimes call them a meat troll, someone who's someone who's kind of making adversarial comments on your posts. Maybe they're saying bacon. That's a favorite of the meat trolls. Or I mean, it can get kind of really nasty, and they can possibly say threatening things or bad things. So I mean, I think there's a difference in someone just legitimately pushing back and being like, "Oh, but I buy my meat at Whole Foods, so it's okay," or whatever, and then you can have a conversation. But then there's people that are really just trying to be controversial, poke and push back. So I'm wondering how you deal with all that. I mean, you must get them. I mean, on your Instagram, you've got an average of about 1,000, hearts or likes or whatever, and then 300 comments. I think that's kind of your average when I was looking down. I mean, so many. And I can't imagine that you read all those comments. I don't know. Maybe you do. But I was wondering how you deal with that.
So trolls are definitely a significant part of the internet, and it is actually something that I think can be used to our advantage. And so I think that the existence of trolls can be a deterrent for some animal advocates to use social media, and I would really hope that they would think differently about this because by using your social media to speak up for animals, it's just such a massive opportunity to pass up in terms of being able to impact animals. And so I would certainly hate for trolls to deter people. And one way that we can actually use trolls to our advantage is by the fact that social media platforms they operate on algorithms. And so your post is only going to be seen by people if people are engaging with that post. And by engaging, it means viewing the post, but also means liking the post, commenting on the post, sharing the post. And when trolls leave their nasty little comments like bacon, that is a signal to the social media platform that this is a post that people are talking about. So we will therefore put this post into the news feeds of other people. And luckily, when people are leaving these kinds of troll comments, they aren't winning anybody else over to their side. They look rude at the very least, maybe even worse. And so they aren't necessarily winning people to their cause. So it can actually be used to our benefit. Now, when it comes to you actually spending your time engaging with these trolls, so for one, I don't read all the comments on my post. For one, there's just too many. I would just be spending hours and hours every day
Yeah.
going through all comments, and it would be exhausting. But even for the comments that I do go through, and if I come across negative comments, I'm not choosing to spend my precious time engaging with every single one of those people. It's just not a good use of our limited time and resources. And as we both know, and as basically all of your listeners know, the problems that animals face in animal agriculture and beyond are just so incredibly significant and on a scale that we can't even comprehend that the importance is just so it is just so important for us to use our limited time and resources in the best and most effective ways possible and endlessly engaging with someone who isn't even being honest is just a really poor use of our time. So I may occasionally throw like one reply their way, but you really don't need to necessarily spend much or any time at all engaging with these people. And when they are landing on your page, just take that as a sign that you are doing something right in terms of getting more attention to your posts and know that they are, unbeknownst to them, actually helping your cause.
Yeah. Yeah. And it means you're reaching a wider audience. You're going beyond the vegan bubble, right? People are actually seeing it that aren't vegan. So that's a good thing. And yeah, I agree. I see a lot of vegan advocates, wasting time. Like you say, it's a waste of time going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with someone that's obviously just, very adversarial, very aggressive. And I don't think it's worth our time. They might say, oh, well, but other people are reading it. And we're trying to educate the other people that are reading it. But I don't know. I agree with you. I do that we shouldn't spend time with it. Maybe say one thing, but let them have the last word. Whatever. I think that's the thing we're concerned that we don't want them to have the last word. but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I mean, whatever you're posting, that's the overarching message, right? The comments, I don't know. And it's interesting that you don't delete them, though. You keep them there because
I
it
do
helps.
occasionally if they've really crossed a line,
Yeah. Okay,
or if
good.
they're
Yeah.
crossing into this, like if they're bullying other people on my page.
Ah, yeah.
Thing. Like
Yeah.
there's certainly times when I will, but in general, I think it's actually most of the time they're actually a net positive.
Yeah. Okay. And you say it helps the algorithm. What else helps the algorithm?
What else helps the algorithm is people is just using social media well. So for example, engaging in your posts, so engaging in the comment section, obviously posting content that is getting engagement in the first place. So when you're going to post something on social media, and this is true whether you're doing it for animal advocacy or for any purpose at all, you really need to ask yourself, like, is my audience going to be interested in this? If they're not going to be interested in this, then they're not going to spend much time on that content. I try to do this by again, like I said earlier, striking this balance where I'm appealing enough to vegans, but also not alienating non-vegans. I'm posting a blend of content, so not just the sad, brutal stuff, but also happy stuff, educational stuff, occasionally funny stuff, news-related content, really mixing it up to keep my audience guessing as to what's coming next. And one other tip I will throw out there that is sort of related is the benefit of scheduling posts in advance using a third-party platform. I use a platform called Buffer, which I really love. And in this platform, I'm able to schedule posts in advance on all of the platforms that I'm active on. And this is really nice because it allows me to use all my creative juices at once. It allows me to have a better overhead view of the kind of content that I'm posting on a regular basis. And it allows me to, instead of wake up every day and think, okay, when am I going to post on all the platforms I'm active on? I can use that limited time to actually engage with people and do other forms of effective advocacy. So I would definitely recommend scheduling posts, which is not necessarily going to impact your engagement per post, but it will make you a better advocate who can better utilize social media.
Well, yeah, and I've heard though that those third-party posting schedulers actually decrease your engagement though. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've heard. When I've asked people about it, I've been advised to not do that and to post directly or at least with, Facebook and Instagram, you can do the Meta back end and do those two at the same time. But I don't know. I've been told to post directly and that helps the algorithm. But maybe if you're at a level that you are where you have so many already, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, one thing I'll say is that there is so much conflicting information about out there about what works and what doesn't on social media.
Yeah.
And truthfully, nobody knows. These platforms are very opaque for reasons. I mean, if they were just like so out there about what worked and what didn't, then and if it was always consistent, then you'd have just a total nightmare of people just completely manipulating their content and posts in a way that are going to work. So really, what you're constantly doing on social media is throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Right.
And I will say that I have not found using third-party platforms to post content to have a negative impact. I mean, in fact, almost all of my posts in 2025 have been posted using Buffer, and my posts have been seen over 50 million times this year. So I've definitely found that using third-party platforms are not disruptive in that way. But
Okay.
even if hypothetically they were, slightly. Let's say I could have reached 70 million people. The amount of positive impact in your advocacy and your own mental state to be able to schedule posts in advance makes it a net positive. So I
Mm.
would highly recommend using that despite the conflicting information out there.
Right. Right. So I had a thought. I was thinking we may be facing a situation soon where people that are pro meat, pro animal ag, they may start saying that the images that we're putting out there are AI generated, right? That they're not real. It's because there's so much now that's just not real. I just heard the term AI slop on the news recently, where now there's just so much AI generated content. And I don't know, I'm getting concerned that this narrative may start coming up that, oh, it's all fabricated, it's not real, it's misinformation, the images that we put out about what's happening to animals. Do you think we should start putting on the videos this content is not AI generated? Like, I think we might need to start doing that just to show that this is real. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could put that on. It's just such the wild, wild west now. We just, it's going to start getting, I think, crazy that you just don't know what's real and what's not. Have you thought about that? What should we do about that?
You're right, Hope. We're entering new territory, and we already live in a world where people don't want to accept that this is how farm animals are being treated. And so,
Right.
if you are able to tell yourself, "Oh, this isn't probably isn't real. It's probably AI," it's another way of being able to dismiss this information. And so, that is certainly potentially problematic in some of our advocacy. Obviously, there's still going to be uh, a significant portion of people who see this content and believe it to be true, but it is also going to lead to some people who don't believe it because they don't want to. And, every single month, the AI generated video and content is getting more and more realistic. And we're
Yeah.
going to come to a time, probably the next few years, where it looks exactly like the content that is actually real. And yeah, mentioning the fact that it's not AI generated is a really good idea. And I would definitely consider implementing that at some point. One hope that I have is that social media platforms make it mandatory to mention if content is AI generated. And if that is the case, then obviously, if you don't have that stamp on your content, then people would know that it's real. But that is, hopeful. I don't know if I would say that I could count on social media platforms to do that. They're not always doing what's in the public's best interest or
Right.
in the animal's best interest, certainly. So yeah, it's new territory, and social media is already the wild, wild west. And then when you implement this incredible ability to fake content, it could pose a problem for sure.
Yeah, I hope that we start putting on the videos on the graphic and the real content out of animal agriculture, just some kind of a stamp on there that says this is not AI generated. I think we should start doing that. Crazy. So I like to encourage people to say live vegan instead of go vegan. Go vegan has been our go to catchphrase since the beginning of vegan time for the last, 3, 4 decades. Go vegan. And I just really like live vegan because I feel like it's just more positive. It's got the word live in it. We want the animals to live. Go vegan feels kind of finger waggy to me, like we're wagging a finger, kind of telling people what to do. I think live vegan has less of a demand. What do you think about live vegan instead of go vegan?
I like that. Yeah, yeah. I think that that is a good message. And I do fear that saying go vegan makes it seem like uh like a task,
Yeah.
whereas live is, you're gonna live anyway. So it's just like, hey, live in this way.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of ask, and I like it. Yeah, it's great. It's great advice, Hope.
Thanks. Thanks. Well, I'm trying to tell people where it'll make a difference so you can really spread it.
Yeah, I'll throw the hashtag on some of my posts in the near future.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Johnny, it's been really wonderful to talk to you. I wonder if you have before we get to our last question, any other advice or thoughts on social media that we didn't cover?
I mean, I would just advise people to, for one, see the value of social media and understand that you are going to make a significant impact by using social media because it's the public town square. It's where basically everybody is, and it's where basically everybody you're connected with. And for that reason, it provides us this really big opportunity to be able to influence people. Now, you don't need to be a full-time social media advocate to make a big difference. But if you are currently reaching, 100 people this year, I mean, make it your goal in the next year, double that. And that's a really big win for animals. And animals are depending on us to be the best advocates that we can be. And fortunately, social media provides us this opportunity to reach so many people. And I also want to say on that note that the vast majority of the impact that you will have as an animal advocate is never going to be known to you. Rarely are people going to come up to you and say, "Hey, you're the reason that I'm vegan." Or, remember that post that you did back in 2017? Yeah, that had a really big impact on my life. But
Yeah.
know that you are absolutely making a big difference. And any time that you are told or notified about the impact that you have made, know that that is just the tip of the iceberg. You will absolutely make a significant impact for animals by regularly utilizing your voice for animals, especially in the digital space and especially on social media.
Yeah. That's a good thing to remember, that we don't know the impact we have, and just doing the good work, doing what you can, advocating for animals, you are making an impact and you may not even know. It's a good thing to remember. I love that. So let me ask you our last question. What gives you hope for the future?
What gives me hope for the future and hope for the animals is coming across people on a regular basis who are really impacted by this work. And so it's for this reason that I really, really feel hopeful for the future because it would be one thing if we lived in a society where everybody knew exactly what they were supporting by eating animals and they just said, I don't care, and I'm going to continue doing this. But we live in a society where most people really don't have any grasp on the problem. And that presents us as a really great opportunity to work to inspire people, which I see people being inspired all the time. And that brings me so much joy and hope for the future, for a cruelty-free future.
Wonderful. Well said. It's very true. I have that hope too. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you, Johnny, so much for all your work, for your dedication to the animals, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Hope, and thank you for everything you're doing to bring hope to the world and to so many animal advocates all over the place to make a better world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Hope for the Animals podcast, a project of compassionate living. So I'm trying to remember some of the things that I learned from Johnny. One that was surprising was about the trolls, the internet trolls, the meat trolls, that they can actually be helpful and bump up your algorithm. Of course, it's a comment. I hadn't thought about that. So looking at those nasty comments in a whole new way now, I would say, and Johnny said too, that if someone is attacking or threatening or disparaging someone else, they should be deleted and blocked. But I guess leaving those bacon comments doesn't hurt. And now I know they can actually help. Was That was a great perspective shift. And speaking of social media, Compassionate Living has several Facebook and Instagram accounts. We have one for Compassionate Living and for this podcast, the Hope for the Animals podcast, as well. And we have our Humane Hoax Project page on Facebook. So go and like and share and comment and give us some digital love. We would really appreciate it. Of course, both our Veg Fests are on there too, the Eugene Vegan Fest that's in May and the Sonoma County Veg Fest in California that is in September. So if you're in either of those areas, check out those pages as well. I hope you enjoyed this show. If you're listening on an app, show us some love by leaving a 5-star rating. Take an extra minute, find the ratings. Sometimes you have to scroll and tap around to find it, but please take a moment and give us a 5-star rating. And extra special sloppy cow kisses to anyone who writes a review. You don't have to say much, just show some love in the reviews of this podcast. It helps so much. So thank you. In our show notes, we have all of Johnny Oberg's links, so check him out as well on whatever platforms you frequent. And get active, stay active, have fun with it, and live vegan.